Welcome to 3-week workshop on programming in C++. In this video, I'm going to explain the concept of inheritance in C++. We know that inheritance is an important feature of object-oriented programming language. With the help of this with the help of the concept of inheritance, we are going to achieve the important property of object-oriented programming that is called reusability principle. So we know that reusability means it is a process of using already existing code for our application, that is called reusability. Because of this reusability, the development code, the cost of the development and as well as the time for development will be reduced. So before going to discuss about the concept of inheritance, just I'm going to talking about some simple example to know about the reusability. The first one is a Swayam portal. So I think everyone have a familiar on this. That means that I think if you are going to apply the concept of a Swayam portal, so surely everyone must to know about this. If you want to join in a Swayam portal for NPTEL courses, so there are different possible ways to log in into that Swayam portal. So one is we are able to create our own account in a Swayam portal for login into that, the first one. And the second one is we can use already existing applications account to make a login into the Swayam portal. So there are three possible domains are allowed for a login purpose. One is account, Microsoft account. Second one is a Google account, and third one is a Facebook account. So if you have an account on these any one of these platform, then we can use this authentication method, the login procedure, to enter into this Swayam portal. So this is the account is already created, and assume this is the class, and they have a one method that is called as a login method. By using this login method, we are sending a username and password, and if that login method return the current status of the reply, so that based on the current status, if it is returned as a true, then automatically it will be login into our account. Login into our means that Swayam portal. So this is the one of the example for a reusing principle. So we are reusing already developed application, so that it will reduce the length of your entire database of your Swayam database, so that the searching time will be reduced. One thing. And the second one, just I think everyone heard about that online GDP. This is the online. This is one of the platform for providing online compiler to run any different type of domains. So if you want to log in into this online GDP, even you can able to create applications here. So in that, see that there is a three means that if you want to log in into this online GDP, there are different ways we have. Either we have used any kind of predefined application like Google Plus or Facebook or GitHub application. So that if you have an account on anything, with the help of that, we can easily do authentication and enter into, we can create a login. Or otherwise, we can create our own login with the help of online DGP. Means that our own create account we can enter. So this is another one more concept of reusability. And even you know that there is a classroom.google.com. This is for we can use the same Google account to enter. So these are some simple example for reusability principle with the help of object-oriented programming. So that whenever you are going to develop any kind of application, we need to think about the reusability. And if you think that if it is possible to use the concept of reusability, then we have to construct the method. We can define the method and define the properties of the class according to the, because the access modifier play a major role to hide the properties of a class. So that if you are defining everything as a private, so unable to access to the outside of the class. So even if it is a public, some confidential information may be leaked out. So that we have to define the corresponding way to implement corresponding method, corresponding access specifier. We need to identify and we have to define for all the class properties. Okay, now I'm coming to the concept of inheritance. So from there we can easy to that it is a reusability. So that it is a process of accessing the property of one classes into another class. Doesn't mean that we need to apply all the property of the class. Maybe the sum of the property depends on the application. It may be varied. So that we have to select only the few proper. Maybe in some situation we need only the few properties. So we have to use only the few properties or maybe all the properties of the class according to our convenience. So that we have this is a process of accessing the property of one classes into another class. So that means that the reused class is called as a parent class, and the class which use the principle of your already existing class is called as a child class. So whenever you're going to implement if you are going to define any class, we need to identify is there any class is already exist or not. If that is already exister, then we need to identify the type of relationship, whether it's a relationship or be a part of the relationship. We need to identify, and based on the relationship status, we need to identify whether we'll go with reusability or not. If there is a relationship is exist with the already existing class, then we can go with inheritance concept. So the parent class is also called as a base class, and the reused class, the child class is also called as a derived class. So by using the object of the derived class principle, we can reuse the we can able to access all the property of a base class according to the access level provided in the base class. Okay. So the syntax for creating inheritance is that the base class must be created already. So then after the definition of the base class, then we have to define the derived class. The class derived class, the class is a keyword, then followed by the derived class name, then followed by the scope resolution operator. This scope resolution operator indicate that you are going to implement the property, you are going to use the property from some other class. Then after that, you are going to define the visibility member for this base class name. So the base class name means that it is a class which is already created. So the visibility member means there are two possibility visibility member is there. One is a private, another one is a public. So if it is a private means that even though the public member of this base class is a private member of this derived class, so that it can be used only within this class. But we can't. But the object of this derived class is unable to access the property of this base class. When we are going to make visibility member as a private. So we will discuss with about this visibility member in the later part of the class. This video. Just we will go and discuss with a simple example. So let us create a one simple C++ program. Just create a structure first. So here I'm going to consider one simple example. So for a two-dimensional class, from the two-dimensional class, I am going to create a three-dimensional object, three-dimensional class. It means that I am going to consider a one two-dimensional object, the two-dimensional class that is called as square. From that, I am going to create a one three-dimensional class that is called as cube. So I'm going to reuse it. So I'm going to create a class square. So it is a two-dimensional object. So now I'm going to create the properties. So I'm going to make it as a side is a private property. Then I'm going to define the area of also here only I'm considering these two data member, and I'm going to be making all the members as public. I'm going to create a one method for getting an input. Even the constructor is also possible. First of all, we have to get a clear idea about inheritance. Then after that, we will discuss about inheritance concept. So enter the side of the square. So get the input from the user. So then after getting an input, we know that there are three basic things is very, very important while you are going to construct any program. One is the input, second one is calculation, then third one is output. So possible we can separate it in object-oriented principle. So then it's easy for reusability. It's easy for us to make a reusability principle. So now the calculation is over. Then I'm going to use another one more method to define the output. To display the output of the square, so that so the area of the square is so I'm going to define the area. So now that the definition is over, in the main class, I'm going to create an object for a square. So I'm going to first of all we need an input. Then followed by the because here I just separated as means I'm going to separate all as the comments. So it's a different thing. So that I need to use it all the properties for checking whether it's a one click or correct or not. So now I'm going to check is there any errors. Just the compilation is over. So now the .exe file will be created. Then I'm going to run this program so that it will ask you input. So I'm going to enter it is a 36. Okay, so just once again, I can test it with the help of F7. So just I'm going to call the input method and so just call the method to calculate the value of the variable and to call the show method to display the value so that it will show the output. Okay, now we know how it will work. So now this is a two-dimensional class. So I'm interested to create a three-dimensional class, but already we have a principle of a two-dimensional. So class and a two-dimensional, I mean, I'm going to create a three-dimensional class. So it is a cube. It is a three-dimensional class. But for three-dimensional is the, I mean, so the two-dimensional is the base for a two-dimensional. So that I'm going to make it as a public. Then I am going to use this square class here. So then after that, I'm going to create a class for a three-dimensional. Assume just I can check it whether the syntax is correct or not. So no errors. So the use of applying the, so the use of applying the concept of inheritance is correct. So here I'm going to create only the area of cube. So one more variable is creator. Then I'm going to create a method to calculate it. So void calculate. We can define the same name also, but it is called as overriding. We'll discuss in later part. Just to be here, I'm going to discuss only on the basic things. So I need to know the value of the area. So that AR equal to, that is 6A square, that is called 6 into the area of the square. Now the calculation is over. Then I'm going to write a one display method just to display the value. So the area of cube equal to the value of AR. So now it's okay. So now this I'm going to compile. One is error. Yeah, surely the square dot area is not accessible. We know that area is a data member, but this data member is under in private property, so that we know that the private member means it can be accessible only within this class only. But we are trying to access the outside of the class, so that it makes an error message. So that there are two possible, so other than the private, there are two possible access modifiers. I feel that this area will not be visible to anyone, so that I can make it as a productor. Productor means it can be possible to access only in derivative class. It has the access permission to use in base class and as well as it's a derivative class, so that this area property can be used in both the square class and as well as a cube class, according to this example. Okay. So I'm going to enter the values. So it will give a value, but here it will work only for the base class because we are creating only for the object for base class. Now I'm going to trace the execution. So it will work as usual. Don't worry about that the results actually presses some other character so that the input is not as in proper way. So just I'm going to, so now we know that by, so this is a square class, so that it will work only for the square class. But if you are trying to access, I mean, if you are creating the object for the derivative class, but still these are the property, you are accessing the property of base classes only. You are not interested to accessing the property of derivative class. But we can able to access by using private class, sorry, by using the derivative class object, we can able to access the property of a base class, whichever we are defined as a public. So sorry, public. So here, so the public is, and public member is defined like this, so that these are the possible properties can able to access by the object of your derivative class. But these are the object is not possible to access. Side is not possible to access in derivative class and as well as object. But this area will be accessed only by derivative class, not by the object of the derivative class. Even though if you are creating like this, it means if you are going to display the value of area here, C dot area, surely it makes an error message because it is a producted member, so that the producted member cannot be not possible to access by the object of the derivative class. Sorry, this is a yes. Now I'm going to compile. Now you can say that it is a not accessible because it is a private data, sorry, producted data member, so that we are unable to access it. Okay, so now you have an idea about the producted concept. So next thing is, first of all, we must know how much memory will be allocated for this cube. So that it's very easy for us to understand. So that the size of cube class is, the cube object is So you know that if you want to know how much memory location will be allocated by using size of property and that object we can define. So no error. Then I'm going to run it. So that the size of the cube object is 6. It means that it is a 6 bytes of memory will be allocated. I'm going to check it now. So here in cube class, there is only one integer variable is there, only 2 bytes. But here I'm using the concept of inheritance. So that I'm going to use the concept of square classes also. So that it allocates the memory for square class data member also. So that here there are 2 data member we have. One is a side, another one is the area. So the both are integers. So 2 plus 2, 4. For a cube base class, it's a 4 bytes. And for derived class, it's a 2 byte. So totally it allocates 6 bytes of memory for storing a value. So now you know, so the memory always, if you are creating an object for the derived class, the memory allocated for means all the data member for both the derived class and as well as means the derived class as well as a base class. Now if you are creating a base class, it will create an object one, means the memory allocated only for a base class only, so that it allocates only 4 bytes. Clear? But with the help of base class object, we are unable to access the property of derived class. Even if you want, you can check it. Yes, I'm going to call the method display, which is the method is present inside of the derived class. So not possible to access it because the display method is not a member of a square. So display is not a member of the square. So that only the corresponding object only is eligible to access it, according to the access modifier also. So that with the help of base class object, you are unable to access the property of derived class. But with the help of derived class, we can able to access the property of the base class. Okay, so now I want to call this a method a calculate, but input is very, very important. After calculation only, calculate only to calculate the area, but I need calculate the area for the cube. So then I want to know only the area of cube, so that just I'm going to display it. Now I'm going to compile. So calculate is a number, is not a member of the square. I think everyone should try to understand. So we are creating the object for the square class. Calculate is not a method for base class. It is a derived class of cube. So now you have to compile. So check it. If there is no error, then I'm going to run it. So it will ask some values. So I'm going to give 216. Okay, so from that we can easy to understand, but we can trace it, then you can easy to understand. It is a main, so class train, so input, so that it will take the values. So then it will calculate method to calculate the value of this area, area, then calculate the area for the cube also, then it will call the method of display to display it. It will work as usual. So from that we can easy to understand that we need to identify the order of the function call to get a correct output. For example, if I'm going to hide this, means I forget to call this a method. So without call this method, the value of this area is not possible to assign. Because here I didn't use any method or any way to assign the value for this area. So that if you are using the area, so automatically it takes a garbage value. So now we can check it F7. So cube is the input. So by using an input method, just we are initializing the value of the square. So just I'm assigned. Now it will calculate the method area. So but here the area of the cube we are going to calculate, but we don't know what is the value in area because we still now we didn't initialize. So that it takes a garbage value only. So that when you are going to construct any type of a code, the values must be get correctly. Otherwise, you will not get an expected output. Then it makes a more confusion to identify where is the mistake is. So that there are different possible way we can define it. Okay, either you can by using the object, we can call the necessary method for a derived class. Also, you have to identify the order. So then only we can get a correct answer. So or otherwise, for example, so now you can say it is a public, so that by using means that if you are making as a visibility as a public member, it means that with the help of this object, means a derived class object, the properties of the base class possible to access. I will repeat once again. So these are the properties of these are the public properties of this square class, and it is make it as a public here. So that the object of this derived class have a rights to access. I'll repeat once again. If you are making the visibility member of your base class as a public, it gives the permission to for the derived class object to access the property of this base class. In case if I'm going to say it is a private, so it means that so we know that the members inside is a private is unable to access. For example, the value of the side, that means the property side is not possible to access anywhere. So within the class, you can't able to access the side because it is a private data member. So that it will be visible only within the class. It will be visible only within the class. Right here, there are another two more members there. One is a protected and as well as a public. And it gives the permission, means that it means that it can be accessible for protector means only for derived class and public means that anywhere. But then after that, while inheriting, means I can make it as a private so that even though it is a public and a protected member of the class must be in a private, it means that those properties must be used only within the class, but not by the object. If you are making your object visibility member as a private, so then it is unable to access those properties outside. For example, now you can check in, now I can make it as a private. So from that we can easily to say that the object of this cube class is unable to access this property, the object of this cube class. But we can able with the inside of the cube class we can able to access. Try to understand the difference. Or for if you are making the class as a private, then the object for the cube class is unable to access. But inside of the derived class we can able to access it. Now you can compile. Surely there is no error. The square input is inaccessible because we are accessing outside of the derived class. So I told that if you are making a class as inherited class as a private visibility member, so it's not possible to access by using that object of the class, so that it makes an error message. So if you define like that, but I told that we can able to access it anywhere. So we can easy to define here. But if you want to calculate the area, means area for the cube, first of all, I must know what is the value of the side. So that it is a similar classes, there is no need for object. So we can call as a normal function calling. So input method won't take any arguments. So just we can call as usual. And as usual, after input, we need to calculate the value of area. So then only the calculation of this cube will be applicable. So now we have to remove this. If you are removing these two, there is no problem on that. I'm going to compile. So no problem. Then I'm going to run it. So it will work. There is no issue. If you want, I can show it with the help of the tracing. It's a clear screen. So I'm going to use the calculate object. So calculate. So automatically the input method is invoked by the derived class, but this the method is defined in the base class. So automatically the control will be transferred to the class, and it does read the input from the user. So then it will calculate the area. Then after calculation of area, the area of the cube will be calculated. Then by calling the display method to display what is the value of this area will be printed. So from that we can clearly to understand that if you are going to apply the concept of inheritance, the visibility member of the class is important. So the default visibility member for the inheritance is private. For example, even if you are mentioning it like this, and if you are trying to access input here, for example, I'm going to access it. If not making any error message, it is a public. But if you are making as error message, it is inaccessible. So then the default access modifier for visibility, the default visibility member for a base class is private. So that we need to define the visibility member for the every class whenever you are going to inherit. So this is the way we are going to define a inherit concept. So so for example, here I'm going to define as area, same name. Now you have to check it. What is the issue you can face? There is an error. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to create an area here. I'm going to compile. No error. And I'm going to run it. So there is in both the base class and as well as the derived class, I have the same name, so that it will display the garbage value. Wait, I can discuss about that. So for example, so here I'm going to call the method show method, and I can try to implement it. So it is a 6. So the area of the square is correct, but the area of the cube is not displayed exactly. So, and it's easy to try to understand that. So it will means that it makes a confusion. So that in a future class, means a future video, I'm going to explain the concept of overriding. So that in that I will explain how to handle this type of name collision and name collision issues for data members and as well as private member. But in this video, I'm going to continue the concept of inheritance. I'm not interested to go with here. So just I'm going to create a one simple just a minute. I'm going to create a one simple program just to showcase the concept of working principle and come back to this example. So I will see.h and this is envoy.h. I'm going to create a class base. So we know that the constructors must be defined only inside of the base class. Sorry, inside of the public mode. Just here, I'm not initializing, just to testing purpose. Just I'm going to use how it will work. So I am in base class. Just use a printf method to display the order of execution. So I'm going to use a derived class. So it must be public, then only that the constructor will be possible to access. And so I'm going to create a one constructor here. So in that, just I'm going to print as I'm in derived class. So now the class definition of the derived is also over. So by using main function, just I'm going to create an object. Just I'm going to clear the previous output. Now I'm going to create an object for a derived class. If you are creating an object for the base class, it will invoke only the base class property. So I'm going to create an object for the derived class. So everything has a default constructor, so that there is no need to pass any parameter and all. I'm going to compile. So I'm going to compile now. There is no error. There is an unexpected yes, extra parameters. Okay, calibrate. So no errors. I'm going to run it. Okay, so now I'm going to trace it by using F7. So main class, it is a class screen. It is a derived class object is creator. So see that the constructor first goes for derived class. Then automatically control will be transferred to the base class property. So then after that, means the derived class will be executed. So that for the default constructor, first of all the base class constructor will be invoked, then followed by the derived class constructor will be invoked, means will be executed. Okay, let us to tag our, let us say have one constructor here, means variable here. So that I'm using a constructor here to define. So this dot a equal to a. So assume it takes a parameter. I'm going to compile. There is a error. So cannot find a default constructor to initialize the base class. So that you not find it. Oh, sorry. So here we need to pass some value. Okay. So ticket errors. Cannot find a default constructor to initialize the base class because it is a default parameter. I'm sorry. This is a default. Sorry. It takes a one parameter. So that we need to identify the corresponding. Means always think that it is a base cover object. So these are the some confusion we will get. So that we will discuss about this concept in the next video to continuation about this, and we are continuation on this method overriding. Thank you.